What if I told you one small mistake, just anim layover, could now cost you $3 in 2026, and most people still have no idea these new driving rules even exist. And that's not the only thing changing, because at the same time, major updates to and LA payments are quietly rolling out, while growing pension crisis in the United States is putting millions at risk. If you don't know what's coming, it could hit your wallet hard. So stay with me till the end, because on this channel, we break down the real updates that actually affect LA, and if you want to stay ahead and never miss what could impact your money next, hit subscribe now, because this channel is built for people who want the truth first. Picture this. You're driving home from work on Tuesday afternoon. The road is clear, the weather is fine, and you're not in any particular rush. You're doing what feels like a completely normal speed, maybe just a touch over the limit, the kind of speed basically every driver does without thinking twice. Then you see the lights. You pull over. The officer hands you a ticket, and when you look down at the amount, your stomach drops. $300. For going 6 miles per hour over the speed limit. That's not a scene from a dystopian movie. That's what's happening to real drivers in real states right now in 2026, and if you haven't heard about these new rules yet, you are going to want to sit down for this one. The world of driving in America has quietly but very dramatically shifted in the last 12 months. State legislatures across the country spent much of 2024 and early 2025 debating and then passing a wave of new traffic laws. And most of those laws took effect in January of 2026. The problem is that nobody told most drivers. There were no billboards. There were no PSAs during your favorite shows. Most people found out the same way that man found out, getting pulled over and receiving a fine that felt wildly disproportionate to what they thought they were doing wrong. So consider this your warning, your guide, and your survival manual all rolled into one. Let's start with the speed fine escalation systems, because this is where the biggest shock is hitting everyday drivers. Several states have moved away from flat-rate speeding fines and have introduced what are being called proportional or income-adjusted penalty systems. The logic behind this idea came from the Nordic countries, particularly Finland and Sweden, where traffic fines have been tied to income for decades. The thinking is simple. A $300 fine means almost nothing to someone earning $400,000 a year, but it is genuinely devastating to someone earning $35,000. To make fines actually deter bad behavior across income levels, you either make them hurt for everyone or you make them proportional. Some American states have now chosen the former, dramatically raising the base fines, and a handful of pilot jurisdictions have begun experimenting with income-linked ticketing. But here's where it gets really specific and really painful for people who thought they understood the rules. In states that have adopted enhanced speeding penalty tiers, the old logic of "I'll just get a small fine for going a little over" no longer applies. Under many of these new frameworks, going just 1 to 9 miles per hour over the speed limit in a residential zone, the school zone, or work zone can now trigger what's classified as an enhanced minor violation. These carry base fines starting at $250 in several states, with fees and court costs pushing the total past $300 almost every single time. That is not a typo. 6 miles per hour over in the wrong place now costs more than many people's weekly grocery bills. Work zones deserve special attention here because the crackdown in those areas has been nothing short of aggressive. Every state in the country had some form of work zone speed restriction on the books before 2026, but enforcement was inconsistent and fines were relatively modest in most places. That changed. Pressure from labor unions representing road construction workers, a group that experiences devastating fatality rates from being struck ill vehicles, combined with advocacy from transportation safety organizations, pushed legislatures to treat work zone speeding as something closer to reckless endangerment than a routine traffic violation. In over a dozen states, getting caught speeding in a work zone now results in an automatic license point addition, a mandatory fine of no less than $5, and in some states, the option for prosecutors to pursue misdemeanor charge if the speed was more than 15 miles per hour over the posted work zone limit. Fines that previously topped out around $200 at 50 now commonly reach $1,000 or more when all the added fees are calculated. School zones have undergone similar transformation. The speed cameras that were once controversial in school zones are now standard infrastructure in most major cities and many suburban districts. What's new in 2000 at 26 is that the grace buffer that camera systems used to apply, the informal practice of not triggering ticket unless you were at least 11 or 12 miles per hour over, has been significantly tightened. Most camera systems are now configured to issue citations at 6 miles per hour over the posted school zone speed, which is often just 15 or 20 miles per hour to begin with. If you're doing 26 in 20 mile per hour school zone during drop-off or pickup hours, that camera is absolutely going to catch you, and that ticket is going to be mailed to your home within 2 weeks. Now let's talk about something that a huge number of drivers still don't fully understand: the right turn on red restrictions that have multiplied like wildfire since 2024. For decades, American drivers have been conditioned to treat a red light as a stop sign when they want to turn right. Stop, check for pedestrians and oncoming traffic, then go. That habit is now getting people into serious trouble. Cities including Washington, San Francisco, Chicago, and New York, along with dozens of smaller municipalities, have enacted outright bans on right turns on red at certain intersections. And some jurisdictions have introduced blanket right on red bans in dense downtown corridors. The problem is that the signage indicating these restrictions is not always obvious, especially if you're visiting a city for the first time or driving through an unfamiliar neighborhood. The fines for violating a right on red ban are not small. We're talking $100 at 50 to $200 at 50 minimum in most places. And the violations are camera enforced at many intersections, meaning you won't even know you got caught until the notice arrives in the mail. Distracted driving enforcement has also undergone complete overhaul in many states, and the technology being used to enforce it is genuinely remarkable in slightly unsettling way. Most people know that using a handheld phone while driving is illegal. That law has been on the books for years. What's changed is the sophistication of the enforcement tools. AI-powered camera systems that were piloted in Australia and the United Kingdom have now been deployed in parts of the United States. These cameras can detect whether a driver is holding a phone, looking down at a screen, or even eating, with a reported accuracy rate above 90%. The cameras don't need a police officer present. They process images in real time, and violation notices are generated automatically. States that have deployed these systems in 2000 at 25 and 2000 at 26 have reported staggering ticket volumes in the first months of operation, not because drivers suddenly got worse, but because enforcement went from sporadic and human-dependent to constant and algorithmic. The fines for distracted driving have also been restructured upward. In states that have adopted the new Federal Highway Safety Incentive Guidelines, which tie federal road funding to the stringency of distracted driving enforcement, the minimum fine for a first offense has been raised to $100 at 50 in many places, with second offenses carrying minimums of $400 or more and potential license suspensions. Some states now categorize phone use while driving as a primary offense that can trigger points on your license with the very first ticket, meaning your insurance rates can jump immediately after single citation. Let's spend a moment on something that affects an enormous number of daily commuters and is genuinely confusing: the new rules around new lanes and dynamic lane management systems. High-occupancy vehicle lanes have always been a source of frustration and occasional rule bending. But 2026 brought with it new generation of way enforcement that relies on in-road sensors, overhead cameras, and license plate recognition technology working together. Simply having a passenger in the car is no longer enough to satisfy lay requirements in some jurisdictions. Several regions have now tied lay access to vehicle classification, emissions ratings, or registered toll account status. Electric and hybrid vehicles that previously received automatic lay access in California, for example, have had their clean air vehicle stickers phased out under updated rules, meaning your drivers who assumed they could always use the carpool lane because they have a sticker are now finding that those stickers have expiration dates, and the new applications are subject to income verification and waitlists. Then there's the explosion of dynamic speed limit zones, which are genuinely disorienting for drivers who grew up in a world where speed limit signs were static objects bolted permanently to posts. Dynamic speed limit systems, which use electronic signs to change the posted limit based on traffic conditions, weather, time of day, and special events, have been operational on some highways for years. But the scale of expansion in 2025 and 2026 has been dramatic. Corridors that previously had one fixed speed limit now cycle through 3 or 4 different limits depending on the hour and the conditions. The challenge is that the liability for knowing the current speed limit falls entirely on the driver. If the sign says 45 when you pass it and you're doing 62, it does not matter that the sign said 65 5 minutes ago. You're speeding based on what the sign said when you passed it. Automated enforcement of these dynamic speed zones has followed quickly behind their installation. Jurisdictions with dynamic speed limit infrastructure have been rolling out point-to-point speed cameras, also called average speed cameras, which measure how long it takes a vehicle to travel between two fixed points and calculate the average speed over that distance. Unlike traditional cameras that capture single-moment, point-to-point systems are nearly impossible to game. You can't slow down when you see the camera and then speed up again. The calculation happens across miles of road, and if your average speed exceeded the posted limit at any time during that stretch, the ticket is generated. These systems are currently operating on several major interstate corridors and highway stretches in the Northeast and West Coast, and deployment is accelerating nationally. Insurance companies have been watching all of these changes very closely, and their response has been to update their policies in ways that significantly increase the financial pain of traffic violations. Many insurers in 2026 have updated their violation severity matrices, which are essentially internal scoring systems that determine how much a given ticket affects your premium. Violations that were previously classified as minor, meaning they triggered small or no premium increases, have been reclassified as moderate or major offenses in some carrier frameworks. A single speeding ticket in a work zone can now trigger a premium review at renewal, and the resulting rate increase can cost driver far more over 3 to 5 years than the original fine did. Some carriers are also now more aggressively using telematics data from usage-based insurance programs, which means if you have one of those driving apps that tracks your speed and braking, that data can be factored into your renewal rates even when you haven't received a formal ticket. One area that has surprised a lot of drivers is the new rules around truck and large vehicle interactions on highways. Following several high-profile fatal accidents involving passenger vehicles and large commercial trucks, Multiple states have passed laws creating mandatory buffer distances, restricted passing zones, and enhanced liability frameworks for crashes near large vehicles. For passenger car drivers, this means that cutting in front of a semi-truck and then immediately slowing down, something that happens thousands of times a day on American highways, can now be cited as traffic violation in several states. The citation is categorized under unsafe merging or reckless lane change near commercial vehicle, and the fines start at $200 with escalation for repeat offenses. There's also been a quiet revolution in how parking violations are being handled in urban environments, and it connects to driving rules in a way that most people don't initially see. Cities that have deployed smart parking infrastructure, sensors in parking spots that track occupancy in real time, have also connected that infrastructure to street cameras. This means that if you're double parked even momentarily in a zone that's being monitored, the system logs the infraction automatically. More relevantly to driving behavior, cities are using this connected infrastructure to more aggressively ticket vehicles that are parked in ways that obstruct traffic flow, bike lanes, or visibility at intersections. The crackdown isn't just about collecting fines, it's about clearing the street obstacles that create dangerous conditions, and enforcement has become genuinely merciless in some cities. So what does all of this mean for you, practically speaking, as someone who needs to drive every day? It means that the baseline assumption most American drivers have operated on for decades, that minor violations carry minor consequences, and the rules are loosely enforced, is simply no longer true in 2026. The enforcement is more automated, more consistent, more expensive, and more consequential than it has ever been. The kindly officer who used to let you off with a warning is being supplemented, and in some places replaced, with cameras that never have bad days, never get distracted, and never decide to let someone off because they seem like a nice person. The best practical advice that emerges from all of this is deeply unglamorous. Slow down, look at the signs, keep your phone entirely out of reach while driving, and if you're traveling to or through a city you don't know well, spend 5 minutes before you leave looking up whether there are any local ordinances around right-on-road turns, school zone hours, or work zone locations on your route. Apps are getting better at flagging these restrictions in real time, but they're not perfect, and the fine you pay when the app misses something is very much your problem. The world of driving has changed more significantly in the last year than it did in the previous decade, and the drivers who adapt quickly are going to save themselves hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars in fines and insurance increases. The drivers who don't are going to spend a lot of time standing at the side of the road, staring at a ticket, wondering how going 6 miles over suddenly became $3 mistake.